I'm really excited because this term culture 20 years ago seemed like a squishy woo-woo part of the world. It isn't anymore. It is something
Yeah.
that, I mean, in terms of I heard a staggering statistic. 88% of all job applicants will see if they can identify or understand what your culture is before they even put an application in. Why
Mm.
is that? Why is that, girl? And why does that matter? Cultures matter so much today.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's talk about a simple definition of culture. I think there's a simple definition. There's a little bit more complex definition, but the simple one is it's how people feel when they come to work, right? And if the majority of the people who come to work feel really good about working there, then you probably have a healthy culture. And if the majority of people feel really bad about coming to work there, then you probably have an unhealthy culture. So the reason that it's important is culture has all of these tentacles that go out to employee engagement, to satisfaction, to that's going to leak into customer engagement and satisfaction. It's going to be a great recruiting tool for you. It's going to be what, when people go home and they talk about their job, what their families hear is going to be about the culture that you've set up. So your culture is important because it truly influences everything within your business, including the marketing, not only to your customers, but also to your potential employees.
And that may float over into those emotions, that baggage or whatever, however I'm feeling, that may float over into the workday. But whatever happens in the workday also floats into home.
Yep.
And I think what I'm hearing a little bit from you here is that culture, if they come into work and they're feeling good about things, they feel valued, they feel a sense of purpose, right? They're going to go home and talk about that, right? Their kids are going to see that. Their families, their friends are all going to see that. And they're going to start to talk about that. That's going to almost self-validate itself. And they're going to want to come back to work again, right? So this cross-pollination of home and work, setting up the right culture has kind of this long tail on it, right?
Yeah, and to your point, Vinay, when you go home and you love your job and you are more engaged in life in general, you're happier in general, you take that into the home. So it's not just that people are seeing it, but their lives are better. Your family's life is better. Your friends' lives are better when you're working in a healthy culture.
There's a saying sometimes I surprise myself with things that I say. One of those things that I've been using for a long time in managing teams and managing companies and things is, I can pay for people's minds, but if I get their hearts, I win.
Yeah.
And that's what culture is all about, because, the idea is, squeezing blood out of a stone kind of thing. Gosh, if you have people that have got their heart in the role, you get more out of it, not because you have to push them, but because they want to. Is that right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You win their hearts and you've won the game. And that's why there are so few companies right now where people are going into it and going, I love the place that I work. I love my job. We might even like our coworkers, but I mean, Gallup's telling us that 86% of people are either disengaged or highly disengaged at work. So we're not winning the hearts of our people. And a big reason for that is we're not intentionally creating the culture where we attract the types of people who want to work there.
So this is a really interesting number, 86%. I always like to try to distill these things into things that can be sort of a take-home message. And someone gave me a great way to measure, to put it into dollars and cents. He said, for every $100,000 that you're putting in payroll, if you take a look at this 86% number, you're basically saying for every $86,000, I'm throwing 86% of that almost down the drain. Is that a fair way to look at that?
That's a sobering, but I would say fair way to look at that.
Lots of things to unpack here. I'm kind of going through all of my notes here, and I'm going back to this, how starting with just culture is how people feel about work. we've gone through this process of saying, culture leads to satisfaction on an employee, a customer, or on a management level, right?
Yeah.
86% of people are disengaged. The numbers just start to show you how significant this is. And what you're offering here, or what this idea of the unlock of culture is, a release of all the noise, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It gets you laser focused. And I think a lot of people see laser focus as, I'm stuck in a box. It's exactly the opposite of that. You actually have more resources to focus where you want, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that type of focus unleashes so much creativity as well. So Vinay, here's the other thing that I would say that is pertinent to this conversation is clarity and community are the foundation of culture. But if you just have those two things, you haven't yet created a great culture to live in. Okay. You're not yet there. You're at a place where people are bought into the vision and they are enjoying working together. But it takes one step beyond that, really two steps beyond that. So let me tell you what the two are, and then we can unpack those. Okay. So after you've identified clarity and community, then that's when leaders begin to say, okay, what is the community? What is the culture that we want to actually create? Like, what does it feel like to work here? And once you do that, do you want people to feel valued? Do you want people to feel like they're working at, a world-class organization? Do we want people to give honor and dignity to one another? What do we want this culture to feel like? That's when you then begin to develop the habits, the behaviors that shape the culture that you want. So I'm going to go back to never happens in marriage.